Hey, it's Nathan and Danny. We're sitting in the Boiyz Club where we actually have no lines.
Why do we have no lines, Danny?
Well, because that's basically what this is all about.
It's exactly what it's all about. We aim to break down all the barriers. There's no such thing as barriers because barriers of silence, fear, and embarrassment around sex and relationships are just too high. They've stopped us from talking and dealing with the real issues. And that's what we're going to do here at Boiyz Club. We are going to deal with the real issues. There are no lines here. There are no barriers. Welcome. I hope you'll be a part of it.
Now, if anyone wants to contact us, you can do that at Boiyz or Z for you Americans Club. CLUB, Boiyz Club at gmail.com. Or you can find us on Facebook, BOIYZCLUB. We've also got a page over there where you can download the rest of our podcasts and you can contact us at any time with any kind of questions. And we will try and get back to you as soon as possible. We're starting this out because, basically Nathan and I were sitting around and we decided no one talks about sex and relationships openly anymore. People need to start getting this stuff out in the open. It's been in the dark for way too long. And me myself had fair amount of years of experience in dating relationships, being married twice. Thank God now have two beautiful daughters. And been through a lot, I would say, in that 16 years that I've been, or probably more than 16 years that I've been dating and have relationships. Really think that I've run the gamut on just about all kinds of scenarios, I guess, that you could probably think of. Would love to share that knowledge and experience with all of you out there who don't necessarily have anyone to talk to or be able to get that kind of advice from.
And I'm the boring guy. I'm the rabbi over here who, has had some life experience, been married for almost 14 years, thank God, blessed with 4 beautiful children, and have been in education for over 17 years. My goal in education has always really been to break the barriers, to talk about that stuff that no one is willing to talk about. And it has come to a time that it's time to talk about sex, but it's time to talk about all that stuff that we need to talk about.
Sex, baby.
Thank you very much. We, by the way, have a silent partner over here. Silent partner, say hello.
We'll just call him Wilson. We'll just call him Wilson for now.
Wilson over here is backing us up, telling us when to shut up, telling us when to say more.
If any of you 90s kids have seen Home Improvement, you'll understand who we're talking about.
All right, so it's very, very important to us that you guys are a part of this process. We're a community over here. We aim and we actually promise, if we can, to have absolute confidentiality. The only people who will hear our story is you, and you can share that anywhere. But anything you share with us, unless you tell us that you want it spread out there, will be between you and us.
It'll be completely anonymous.
Completely anonymous. Obviously, if you bring subjects up with us, it's because you want us to talk about it, not as somebody, who everyone wants to know what you're about and what you're doing. But if you have some type of nisayon, some type of experience that you want to share with us, that you feel can teach the rest of the world, break down those silences, please contact us on that Facebook page, contact us on the Gmail, because we need you to be a part of this community. It's going to be huge, it's going to be massive, and size doesn't count. All right,
first of all, although let's talk about the elephant in the room right now. We might sound a little strange to all of you, and that's because we're Australian. Right? The both of us are from Australia. Myself from Melbourne, Nathan here from Sydney, but that doesn't mean that any of you out there are, neglected from being able to share with us. We aim to try and target as many people out there as we can. We are really trying to open this up in the most broadest of terms, as our motto is that we actually have no lines, mainly for a lot of different reasons, because we're saying a lot of this stuff ad lib. But on the other end of the scale is that we are trying to be as inclusive as possible. Now, we're opening up our first podcast with one of the most controversial not controversial, but I would say the most interesting part of a relationship world when it comes to young people starting out in their lives, getting out in the wide open world, and we're going to start talking about dating.
Yeah, the interesting thing about dating, Danny, is that I think that dating doesn't start when we decide to send the first email or pick up the phone. In fact, I remember the first time I called this, she was a girl at the time. She now lives in Katamon. Thank God she's happily married, and so am I.
She's still a girl?
No, she's now a lady. She's now, thank you, Wilson. She's now a lady. Then she was a girl and I was a boy. She was a girl, and I wrote notes for myself.
Like notes you would...
Yeah.
Like cheat notes.
Like cheat notes. Like, what happens if we've got nothing to talk about? Okay.
That's funny.
You're laughing at me in the first podcast. That's not going about.
That's funny. Well, I've got to tell you something. Just to cut in there. I was once sitting in one of Rav Riskin's Yeshirim, and he basically talked about relationships. And one of the major things he said was that if you're ever in a situation where you don't know what you're talking about with the person across the table from you, you should talk about the 3 F's: food, family, and philosophy.
Pause. Philosophy. Go.
Yeah. So that was just a side note, but please tell us about these cheat notes.
None of my notes had anything to do with philosophy. I can't tell you much more because she might be listening, her husband might be listening, her brother, who's one of my best friends, might be listening. But anyway, thank God we are both happily married. And yeah, we got on with it. But what I want to say is like this. I don't think dating starts on the first date.
No, it's funny because after I got divorced, there was a certain period of time there where people would be scared to ask me, "Are you dating?" Because people wanted to, set me up with friends or whatever it might be, and we'll go into a lot of that a little bit later. But they would they would be scared to ask this question. Are you dating? Are you seeing anyone right now?
Have you got rabies? Like same type of question.
Exactly.
Right?
That's what it sounded like, because they didn't really know how to approach the subject, which is a little bit strange because I think even when I was probably 15 or 16, I was dating.
So that's what I wanted to say.
Right.
That's exactly what I wanted to say. I think that dating starts long before you go out. It starts when don't turn the podcast off until I finish this sentence, okay? Because it might sound dodgy. It starts at 7, 8, 9, and 10 when you watch your parents, if they're married, or like I had a single mother going out on dates. That tells you a lot about what you're going to do when you're dating, because you see your mother or father, or if they're a single parent going out. Do they get all dressed up? Do they get nervous? Do they talk on the phone before? And how do they do that? So I think that we need to be mindful when we go on a date that it starts long before with the education that we've seen from our parents, our older sisters and brothers.
When I was in my young teens, I used to see my brothers and my brothers and my sisters going out and dating other people. That definitely left a huge impression on me and what my idea of dating was all about. So
what's one of those examples that you were left with? With a lesson from them, good or bad?
Well, definitely good was that I always used to see them going out dressed very well.
Uh-huh.
They used to dress very nicely, whether it was button-down shirt, whether it was cash pants or jeans and nice shoes. It left a message to me in my mind that they took whoever they were about to meet, they took them seriously.
Uh-huh. Or they took themselves seriously, which is as important.
Yeah. And that's something that always resonated with me, especially when I went out on dates to try and make sure that, because those first impressions, they do last.
Yeah.
And I think that's a huge thing that I think that we should start to talk about.
Although just with that first impressions, in my example, when my entire wardrobe when I started dating was blue shirts. Okay, it's not necessarily that first impressions last, but it's either first impressions last or the other person has a lot of faith in you. that something's going to happen and that blue shirt may one day turn into a pink or a purple shirt. Right, my lovely wife? Who 13 years later, boom, has me wearing pink shirts and white shirts and blue shirts and sometimes no shirt. All right.
Very well done, Robertson. We're all proud of you.
Let's just be a little bit more Masudar over here, a little bit more structured. We looked at the Urban Dictionary, of course, because that's where you go.
I think when you're trying to find the definition for something, the Urban Dictionary is probably where you would start.
For sure, 100%, right? So the Urban Dictionary about dating says of a couple, which is interesting why they're a couple already when they're just going on a date. Okay.
Well, it's a couple of people, I guess.
Okay.
Although, could you date with 3 people?
Well, yeah.
That's a different kind of date.
Three's a crowd.
Three's
Okay.
a crowd, fair enough.
Okay, of a couple to be in the early stages of a relationship where they go out on dates to find out, this is important, to find out there's a matara, there's a goal behind it. You are finding out what each other is like. Okay, what's that word? As a?
Prelude.
Prelude. Australians. Okay, as a prelude to, that's the difference between education in Melbourne and Sydney. All right. As a prelude to actually being a full-fledged couple. So what we see here from Rabbi Urban Dictionary that we take very, very seriously is it's very interesting because there's a specific goal here that you are going out to find out what each other is like.
You know what? You know what that actually reminds me of? There is... I can't remember if they're a kind of fish or if they're a kind of animal.
Okay.
But before they actually mate, they actually do a dance and they are feeling each other out, and they sometimes actually attack each other. I can't remember exactly.
That happens after dating.
Don't quote me of exactly what kind of animal it is, but that's what it sounds like. It sounds like there are these 2 people who they're doing this dance of trying to, fill each other out and see if they're actually a prelude to actually being a fully fledged couple.
So I can tell you my first date, right? I mean, but it was pretty serious to jump 12 minutes into a podcast about my first date. But my first date with my wife, as in, right? Because, there were many before, right, Meg? Anyway, my first date with my wife was very, very haphazard. It just happened, and obviously we have different stories about how it happened. Right. Maybe we'll bring her in for an interview one day
to get her side of the story.
That's right. The wives on the Boiyz Club. But anyway, the truth is, we met at 10:30, 11 o'clock, and we spoke the entire night. She walked me to Shachut. She walked me to morning prayers, right? And
you know what some people would call that?
Yes, but we at the time were very pure. And it was an amazing thing because we spoke through that entire night. That entire night was about our families, our goals in life.
Food, family, philosophy. There you go.
Philosophy. There were a lot of philosophy. How many children we wanted to have, and all of that, where we wanted to live, all that type of stuff.
That's a pretty intense first day.
It's we're very, very intense. You'll hear, I'm sure, a lot later on. We have a very
So I'll tell you a little bit about my first day with my wife.
Go for it.
My current wife. Basically, it had been delayed because of certain things that were going on in each other's lives. So when I actually asked her out, she said, "Yeah, sure, no worries, but can it be in 3 weeks' time?"
When I get rid of the other guy.
So at this point, I was a little bit, questioning, is there actually another guy? But she was like, "No, it's just a crazy time. There were some other things that were going on," and I was like, "Fine." So it ended up being Chol Moed Pesach, and so I was like, "Fine, no worries. Let me take care of what we're doing."
What are you going to eat?
So she suggested the place, and I took care of the food. So I packed a very, very delicious brunch, which she definitely commended me on.
Okay.
But I also have to give a huge kudos to my sister, who was a big part of getting that whole thing planned, because I was struggling a little bit to find things that we were actually going to eat on Pesach. And we ended up going to a forest, which is Forest Ben Shemen. For those of you that know it, it's a little bit past Modi'in.
By the way, Danny doesn't take any money for tips on good places to take people
No,
dating.
absolutely not. And I'll tell you why. This one especially, because after having a very, very nice meal and we were talking, we had a very, very nice talk, my wife suggested, let's go for a walk. I said, okay, sounds like a nice idea. I said, do you know the area? She said, yeah, sure, I know the area. I said, fine. So I said, let's not work for too long because it's a little bit hot outside. She's like, yep, great, no worries. So we went up for a walk. We started walking, we were talking, it was very nice. After about 25 minutes, I said, are you sure you know where you're going? She said, yeah, I know where we're going, no worries.
Is she the man in the relationship?
About 45 minutes later, I said, gee, I think you're lost. She scratched her head and looked around and said, yeah, I think you're right. So then we proceeded to try and actually find anyone that we could see to try and ask them how to actually get out of the place. So that was our first date. We actually got lost together.
Can I pick up on something there?
Of course.
I think that's an awesome start to dating, marriage, whatever it is. Your wife-to-be, whether you knew it was your wife-to-be or not, admitted that she was wrong.
It's true.
And I'm not like making stupid sexist jokes.
Yeah.
I'm saying for anybody to admit that they were wrong on their first date is absolutely huge. I want you guys, come on our Facebook right now, tell us a story. When was the first time you admitted to your wife or your husband that you were wrong? I'd like to know.
Or that they admitted to you.
Or they admitted
that
to
they
you.
were wrong.
That's right. And just obviously get their permission. We are not into embarrassing people.
Of course.
Please make sure to get their permission. But we want to know, when was the first time you admitted you were wrong or your spouse admitted that they were wrong? All right. So Wilson's telling us we need to move on to the next topic.
I think
Should we listen to him or not? Because he's meant to be silent.
All right. But let's just close this up by saying that the first dates that you do go on can be very intimidating things. We'll definitely get back to them in a more organized fashion of giving you different kinds of tips and different kinds of advice.
We also have an interview coming up. An amazing guy. Ladies flocking to him, but he's not married yet. So we're going to have to, put him in a corner about that. But we have an interview coming up. He's going to spill some beans about the relationship and dating world, especially in Katamon, in Israel, and what's going on there. I have a little bit of experience in that, not from the dating side, but being the rabbi of some of the people that are there. If we could talk about some of those issues, I think it'd be really, really important and... could help some people out over there.
No doubt. Just on that, for our listeners out there, just so you know about all our future interviews that we come in with guests that are going to be coming on our show, we're not going to shy away. We're not going to shy away from the hard questions. We're not going to shy away from the intense questions or even the revealing questions. We want to make sure that people are getting a very real look at what's going on with the people that we bring onto the show. It's really important to us that you understand where these people are coming from and how their lives are living, and it's not a show behind a reality curtain. It's something which is actually happening, and we want to make sure that you understand that. Hopefully down the line we'll also be able to include the listeners into the actual interviews, but we've got big plans coming up because this is going to be a very interesting community that we're going to be building. But let's move on to the next.
Before you do, if you have someone that you think we should interview, if you are someone that you think we should interview, email us on boyzclub@gmail.com. BOYZ.
No one spells it like we do.
Or Z for the Americans. BOYZ or Z club CLUB@gmail.com. Wilson, am I doing well?
Nice. Thumbs up on your mate.
All right, let's move on.
Okay, so one of the more intense parts of dating is the physical side. A lot of people do or don't want to be physical, at least from the beginning.
Who doesn't want to?
Well, there are a lot of people out there who don't. Even though they might be a physical person or they might, like sexuality, but there are certain security guards or safety guards that you want to put in place to be able to make sure that things aren't moving too quickly too soon.
But that's a proof that human nature is that we do want. Those halachot, those safeguards, those laws that are put there are there because God realizes He created us, for goodness sake, right? He put the ingredients in that sexuality is something, and physical attraction is something that's very important to us. Let me tell you a short story from the Talmud. May I?
Only if you... Yes.
Okay, so short story from the Talmud is like this. There were the rabbis around the times of the temple. The two major sins that were going on was avodah zarah, which is bowing down to serving idols, and sexual issues, pretty much like today, right? Everyone was wanting to be with everyone and everything.
That's sexual issues
for
everyone else.
Issues and issues. I was copying my English friend. Anyway, so they saw that the sexual issues were really taking hold of the Jewish nation. And so they decided that they do like this Kabbalistic thing, and they captured the sexual drive. They put it in a pot and put a lid on the pot. And they're very proud of themselves, these rabbis, that they'd saved the nation.
So it's not, they're not saying that they actually physically captured.
Oh, it's a spiritual story.
Okay.
It's a spiritual story
Okay.
that they...
No, I think it's important for people out there to understand. We're not talking about two guys who were on E. No. They were smoking something and they thought that they'd actually captured something, they put all these people having sex and they'd put them into a pot.
No, not the people, the ta'ava, the yearning, the desire.
Right.
Certain people,
Okay.
rabbis, especially around that time, had great powers, and they called on whatever it was to be able to do this. Anyway, you're making my story much longer. So the Talmud says like this: they captured the sexual drive, they put it away in a pot, and then they went and they looked out around the nation, and they saw major problems. Husbands and wives were fighting more than normal. Cows were not giving milk. Chickens were not laying eggs. And they realized, oh my goodness, we've done the wrong thing. The world needs a sexual drive. It needs a sexual desire. So it says that they painted like a rouge. Those of you that are married and watch your wife put makeup on, you know what that is. Eye makeup on that desire. And they set it out into the world. In other words, they weakened it. So it's very important here, especially when we're dating, to understand that God put a sexual desire into the world because it needs to be there. It's part of our functioning, right? That doesn't mean that we deny the fact that it's there and say, no, well, there are, people don't want that.
Yeah,
people do want that. And that's why, I'm not here to tell anyone what to do. I'm not here to give anyone any pointers in what to do or not to do. I'm just going to tell you what the Torah says. And that is the reason that we have all these safeguards, which we'll discuss now, like yichud, not being in the same place privately with the other sex, or shomer negia, not touching. All of those things are there because God and the rabbis realize the reality of sexuality.
Okay, but God and the Torah and all these things are all, well and good. I am all for them. However, the reality of today's world is that a lot of people need these kinds of things in their relationships.
What are these types of things?
A physical relationship,
okay.
whether it's holding hands or kissing or whether even more.
Yeah.
These are things that some people need in their relationships. For example, when I started dating after I got divorced, there were certain things that I was going through personally, and I needed to be able to know how the future partner that I was going to have was going to be physically. That was something that was very important to me. But at the same time, there are some people who they're not capable of communicating their own emotions and their feelings towards other people. And the only way that they can do that, or that they can feel that other people are feeling that way about them, is through a physical touch. A physical touch can say a lot more than some words can. And there are people out there who understand that these concepts exist, like Shomer Negia and like Yichud, and they need to stretch those boundaries, because yes, you do have the people that are doing it not for pure reasons, but there are also people out there who are doing it for the reasons that are I'm going to say productive, for a lack of a better term. That
Wilson, can you look up a better word?
it's they're doing it in the vein of being able to try and strengthen and being able to enrich their relationship and be able to progress it forward. I understand both sides of that coin, where people don't want to be able to include physical aspect of relationships into things because it can move too quickly, too soon. And that is something that I've definitely experienced myself. There was actually someone that I was dating who we ended up kissing on the first date, and it was something that I regretted afterwards, simply because I was in a space where it let me cloud my judgment, and a couple of weeks after that, I started to see, the first couple of days or a week or so after that, it was very nice. We were having a great time, and I felt like in my heart that we were connecting. But then a couple of weeks later, I started to realize in my head that we were not.
Yeah.
And that's something that, although those, like, Yichud is there for a certain specific reason, and Shomer Negia is there for specific reasons, but the realities of today and the things that people do to be able to enhance their relationships, I think those are very, very great lines.
So you've really put me on the spot over here, Danny. That's good.
What else am I good for?
There are no lines here. There are no lines. We've crossed all the lines in the first podcast. That's awesome. So what I'm going to say is like this. I'm not going to lie. My wife and I are very, very physical. Probably the greatest issue we had dating was physicality. There is no doubt about it that was like our biggest challenge, right? What I think we need to be real about...
Wait, one second, sorry, if I can just clarify and I can just dig a little bit deeper. It was challenging because you just had decided that you weren't going to touch each other?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. As the normal boxed, religious, orthodox dating people...
That's not normal.
Okay. Well, I wish we would have known we weren't normal. It would have been a lot easier. But anyway, the point is that it was one of our greatest challenges, all right?
Can imagine.
Thanks, Danny.
No,
I want to know if you're commenting about my looks or my wife's looks. Let's not put that on air. Let me just finish over here. Okay. It's like this. It's very, very important. Someone once, and I don't want to say her name because she hasn't given me permission, but she gave a mashal, a parable about something else that I want to put here. She gave this parable that there's a major difference when you're driving between going, hey, there's a red light and I'm going to go through it, or, hey, there's no red light, okay? And I think that it's important here, and we have, please God, a whole lot of different people from different mindsets and hashkafot listening to this. And in no way, shape, or form do I want to make anybody feel right or wrong or everything or anything like that.
No judgments.
No judgments. It's everyone's decisions, right? And I'm going to tell you something really, put it on the podcast. We failed. My wife and I dating failed over and over again. But we felt that we failed. We said, whoa, that was a red light that we just went through. And I think one needs to be careful if they want to... I know there are all different types of, grey and black and white and everything. But I think one needs to be very careful when you say things like, I have to have this physical relationship in order to know. Because for those that want to keep to the letter of the law, the Torah is pretty out there in saying this is going to have specific outcomes for your relationship afterwards. You even spoke about it, right? And not that many people have the clarity of mind to stop after a first few dates and go, well, you know what? That kiss is clouding my judgment. No doubt. I'd like to put it out there like this, just a suggestion, right? If someone is being physical with the person they're dating, I think it's really important to have a mate, right? Or a girlfriend, whoever it is, whatever the sex is, that you can be real with and say, hey, this is what I'm feeling about that person. This is what it made me feel. Do you reckon my judgment is being clouded? Now, I'm a rabbi, so I can't go and put my signature on, okay, as long as you do that, you can go and have sex, you can do whatever you want, right? But I'm saying those that are choosing to have a physical relationship, it might be a really good idea to have someone, a good friend, a brother, sister, whatever it is that you trust, that can check it out with you and make sure that your clarity of judgment
be
is not
completely
being
objective.
clouded. Exactly.
Yeah, it's really important to be objective. I definitely agree with that, and I relate to it a lot. One of the ways that I was able to understand about the previous example that I was talking about, it was actually I actually spoke to my sister about it. I'm very 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 close with my sister, and she opened up my mind to be able to realize that what I was experiencing was a physical attraction. I guess because of the example that you talked about before, but the connection that we needed to have on a non-physical level, on an emotional level, on a mental level, on a spiritual level, those kinds of things I think were lacking, and the physical side of it was clouding that clarity, I guess. But I think this would be a fantastic segue to be able to interview our friend. Yeah. Do you want to give him a short intro?
Yeah, I guess I can. Okay, I've known this guy for quite a few years. In fact, when I was a shaliach of B'nai Akiva in South Africa, he was the national chairman for some time. He's an awesome guy. He really likes talking the truth. He's out there. He's very social. He started an amazing organization called Orchim LeShabbat. He can tell us a little bit about that. By the way, if you're a guest here, as long as it goes according to our ideology, you can push whatever you're doing as well. This is a platform for everybody. So we decided to invite Daniel Weiner because he is a true person, an MS sticker person, as we say it.
From what I understand, he's also, he also understands the world of dating quite well.
I think he does. We're about to see, aren't we?
All right. Well, let's introduce him.
All right, Daniel Weiner, you got the floor, my brother. I've been really, really excited to interview you. I can't wait for the truth that's going to come out there. Just to throw a few things out there, in the community that you're living in, I know that there are a whole lot of, I don't want to call them issues, but the topics that are going around. We just started talking about touching and not touching. There are some people who have spoken to me as their rabbi who are like, I'm in a real difficult place over here because I get put into a box of I am a toucher or a not toucher. Those that are touching, many of them, I've been told, and this is without judgment, it's like, well, if we touch, well, then we have sex as well. I'd like to talk to you or with you about that type of stuff. The different types of dating, what's acceptable? Is it only shidduch dating? Does it start on SMS? Anyway, the floor is yours, Daniel Weiner.
Okay, how's it, guys? First and foremost, thank you very much for having me on. After I got a phone call from Rav Natan and he told me about this. One of the reasons why I think it was I was more than happy to come and be part of this project, and the reason why I think it's exceptionally important, because I believe it's a conversation which I'm having with 50,000 people at the same time, but always on a one-on-one where no one else can hear, or going for a walk talking about it. And it's so weird, it's I always laugh about it, that there's one conversation happening between so many people, but everyone in private and everyone too scared to have it openly.
That's right. So we're going to ask you a question.
Are
you ready? When did you lose your virginity? No, I'm kidding. It's just so funny, guys.
We don't have any lines, right? We don't have any lines. This is how we roll.
Best bar mitzvah present I ever got.
I don't know what you guys do in South Africa.
So Weiner, let's just ask you a question over here. Being very serious.
One second. Sorry. Before we get into do you want to give a little bit of background in terms of what you're doing in Israel now? Where you made Aliyah from, why you made Aliyah?
Okay, so basically my life in a small nutshell. Born and brought up in South Africa. Finished my whole schooling in South Africa. Then I came to Israel for 3 years. I was in yeshiva for a year and a half. Then I was in the army for a year and a half. And then I went back to South Africa for 3 years. I was very involved in various community projects and in the world of Jewish education and other stuff. When I was in South Africa for those 3 years, I also did a business degree. Then after I finished my business degree and working for B'nai Akiva in South Africa and other things, I made Aliyah 3.5 years ago. Since then I'm a law student, been studying law. I also started a social startup called Orchim LeShabbat. I also work for B'nai Akiva. I also volunteer for Talfed, and I'm sometimes when you make Aliyah, you end up being Israelis that you just do 30,000 things.
Yeah.
So Why are you not married? Girls, did you hear that shit?
No, this isn't the Polish grandmother podcast.
No, so wait, so Dafka on that point, I'll say something which I believe is a big problem, but like all connected, is that lots of people who are, let's say, older, the older 20s who are not married, first of all, they often, like I know you meant it as a joke, but they get the question like, why aren't you married?
Yeah.
But even more than that, and I think this is more so with girls than guys, they also ask like, why am I not married? And I think there's almost like an undertone of that there's something wrong with me. As in like, if I'm so good and I'm doing so many good things, how could you not be married? There must be something wrong. And
No, hang on a second. I think people ask you that because A, you're accomplished, you're competent. It sounds like you've got a brain in your head. You're not a bad looking person. You're clean, you're neat. You come from a good family. You've got good intentions in your life. So I think that's where people they feel like they want you to be happy. They want you to have a life partner. So.
But again, I think it's based on the assumption that if everything's going good and if you fill those boxes, then you should be married by 25, 26. And if you're not, then something's weird. And
do you get offended by that question?
No, not at all. I mean, I'm like quite open and I'm like more awful.
Do you have any friends that might be...
No, so I know lots of people, and I'm saying specifically, I think more girls than guys, who it's very... Not only is it offensive, I think it makes people feel uneasy about themselves. Because they might be the most accomplished, the brightest at school, even exceptionally good looking, but they're still not married, and people say, but why aren't you married? And it's like, well, maybe there's something wrong with me. And I really think it, like, again, I've got no like information or like surveys or anything I can think, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's like these sort of questions, this way of looking, causes people to have less self-confidence. It causes people, I don't want to use the word depression because maybe it's too dramatic of a word, but I definitely think like those sort of questions, that sort of mindset of like, whoa, how could I be 27 and not married? What's wrong with me? Puts people in it's almost like something's wrong with them. And I think that's a very like negative, one of the very many negative undertones in our society.
Wina, have you ever been on a date before that you felt that coming from a person or from yourself? Like you sit down at the table and maybe you're all focused on your, oh my goodness, I hope this one works. Or have you picked that up from someone else that you've sat opposite in a date?
So,
no names.
Yeah. But there's definitely been people who you've gone on, I've gone on dates with, and you feel that, like I definitely do get a feeling that I feel like they lack a little bit of self-confidence. Mm-hmm. And just who I am by my nature, I'm very open, easygoing, so like I don't think I've necessarily given it off, even though it's very possible that I have. But there definitely have been girls who you feel that they feel a little bit like uneasy about it. And the worst is specifically on like a first, second date. It's the hardest being on a date like that because there's so many barriers and there's so many walls being put up as a result of this like uneasiness that it's even harder to get to know someone. So instead of just rather going on a date and getting to know someone, and if it's no, it's no, it's fine, but at least you know it's no right away, instead of just like playing this game and going on, I think it does more bad than good.
True. So how long is the longest relationship you've ever had? I'd say serious relationship, obviously, in your dating life.
Sure. The longest relationship I've probably been in hasn't been too long. Like unfortunately, I haven't been dating for as long as I should have. Like for different periods of my life, I refused to date because either yeshiva, the army, or other stuff. So only relatively recently I decided, this is really something as a result of my nice mom, Jewish mother pressure.
Thanks, mom.
It's something I need to take a lot more seriously. But so probably the longest relationship was probably like 3 months. Roughly
okay.
2.5
That's still something. And in that relationship, do you feel like you started with a lot of barriers in the beginning or a lot of walls that you put up yourself and then it's slowly...
Dafka not. Dafka, like I found like the best relationships I've been in are the ones who like from the beginning exceptionally open. Mm-hmm. Like I like to think of myself as quite like an open guy and like I connect to people who are able to be open with me. So the best relationships I've been on, but even on the first date we're talking about like crazy, very open things because that's just the kind of person I am and that's what I'm attracted to. So when I'm in such an open relationship, it's a lot easier to for it to last longer.
Right. Do you think that openness, as a religious young gentleman, do you think when you start so emotionally open, it gets difficult quicker when it comes to physicality? I mean, I've spoken on this podcast before about my relationship with my wife. And the greatest difficulty was for us, so we put up those barriers and said, we're going to be Shomer Negia, we're not going to touch. but yet from the first time we started to speak, we were speaking about the deepest issues ever. Do you think that it makes a difference on how open you are emotionally to your physical relationship?
Yeah, without a doubt. I also think there's two different kinds of like physicality. There's a physicality which every guy wants. Every guy's a pig and every guy wants to get action. Doesn't make a difference who you are, what you are. That's like without a doubt. Oh. That's like the one avenue. But there's another avenue of physicality, which I really believe it's just a real expression of like friendship, or even if you see someone who you really like, a guy or a girl, you want to give them a hug. It's an expression of some sort of like feeling towards them. So obviously, like the original physicality I was talking about, the guys feel it with any girl with the dofek and legs. You know what I mean? Like, but I think the other
animal impulse.
Yeah, exactly. No, but really.
Yep.
But the other physicality, which is a lot more as a result of an expression of a certain feeling. So obviously, the more open and deeper you get with someone, there's a lot more of a want to express that via physicality, and sometimes it's not even as, and I'll put inverted commas, hectic as like the other animal instinct. Yeah. Sometimes it's really just putting your hand on the shoulder, or like even just holding hands, because it's just a real expression of a real sincere feeling.
Right.
Yeah. And I think that's definitely something which comes along. The more readily you jump into the deep end of being open and.
Do you think that's something like being physical, even if it's holding hands or giving a hug or whatever? Do you think that's something that helps to break down certain barriers?
Yeah, without a doubt. I feel like there's certain things that just can't be expressed in words, without a doubt. Like there's no question.
Okay, so tell me some of the give us a more interesting place where you've taken a girl on a date. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that you've been a couple of days. Sometimes you got to get a little bit creative about where you're going to take them. Right? So give us some ideas of where you've taken girls that haven't been just a cafe or just a.
So that is true. So what also ends up happening when you start dating, you get into this like, for lack of a better word, routine on going on dates. And the problem is, if you start making dating a routine, then it's not exciting. First of all, it's not exciting. But it also reaches the stage where you don't want to go on dates anymore.
Yeah, it's not even attractive to go.
I don't even like coffee.
So this is what I'm trying to get at. I actually, there was a girl once that I dated who was actually connected to a very, very, I'm going to say interesting family, for lack of a better term.
Gangsters.
No, not gangsters. And I really wanted to impress this girl because I'm sure she's been on a lot of dates. She was roughly around about my age, which means that she had been on a couple of dates and she on a fair amount of dates, and she hadn't really been able to connect with anyone. And so I decided the first date I was going to take her was we went to go play squash.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. It was
Did it go well?
No.
Does that mean she beat you? Or?
Always the one.
Okay, so what's your squash story?
So you obviously try and make it fun, but not only for her, but also for myself. I don't want to get to a stage where I don't enjoy going on dates, because it's obviously counterproductive in the long term. Sometimes it's like certain times what I've done, I also want to enjoy the date. Even if the date itself doesn't go well, I want to enjoy the experience. Even if the date itself doesn't go well, I always like meeting new people, so it can't go that bad. So there's been a couple of times where I'll go and look for the best bars in like Jerusalem, and like Dafka, I've taken people to like places in East Jerusalem. There's all like these like really cool bars. Wow. So like I'll go there, pick up, and go, cool, there's 3 places. Like tell me which one like you haven't been to, and like let's go there. So I'm saying something like that, which is like very cool.
We take no responsibility for anyone's safety. Anywhere else, unless under the care of wine.
It's like going to some. There's some really cool places in East Jerusalem, which like no one dares to go past there. But there's like really cool places. That's that. There's a whole bunch of different like places which are like more nice walks, Tiolim. Israel's got beautiful. For the world of Chutznikim, Jerusalem is the Shuk, Ben Yehuda, and Mikrefaim. And if you like crazy, you go to the Tachana Rishona and Derech Beit Lechem, to the Grand Cafe where everyone goes. But I'm saying, but at the end of the day, there's like beautiful areas. Like, thank God I'm privileged that I have a car. So like, it definitely opens up like a lot more possibilities of going to like really cool places, and there's really cool places to go.
Well, I know we're going to have to wrap it up now. It was wonderful to have you. We'll have you back. Let's have a vote. Who wants Weiner back? You can have us. You can't have us. Well, you can have Weiner. You can reach us on Boiyz Club, BOIYZ or Z for you Americans at gmail.com or Facebook. Tell us what you thought. Tell us if you want us to interview you. As I say, we only take a very small fee for finding you your future wife or husband.
I was just about to say.
Danny, you got anything to say?
No, I just wanted to say if there are any girls out there who want to send along your details, we're more than happy to forward them up to Daniel. But thanks for listening, guys. Hope you enjoyed the podcast, the very first one, and hope you start to get on to number 2. Have a great one.
Have a good one, Winer.
Cheers.
Thanks
All
for
the
being
best.
here.
Thanks, guys. Thanks.